In a world of ice and snow, in a world without wheels, the race does not always go to the fastest. Sometimes it goes to the highest.
I guess it depends on if you want to pass somebody in the air. I guess, like anything else, if you're on the ground, you're moving faster. But if somebody's in your way, you're going to jump over them. Mm-hmm. You're going to see a lot of that.
This is America. If it's got a motor, we'll find a way to race it. You're listening to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and this morning we're looking ahead to some of the big snowmobile races coming up this month. Then, later in the show, we'll check in on this year's commemorative snowmobile ride to the B-52 crash site in Greenville that will happen in a couple of weeks. I expect your undivided attention because the New England Patriots have the week off, and what else is there to get excited about? Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, and Napa Auto Parts. We start the show with a look at next weekend's excitement. It's been years since Bass Park in Bangor has been the site of a major snowmobile race, or even a minor one. Next weekend, the Eastern Maine Community College Foundation takes the lead in bringing Snowcross to Bangor. And with Snowcross comes the owner of the racing series, Kurt Gagne. Welcome, Kurt.
Hi, how are you?
Good. The Paul Bunyan Snowcross is coming back to Bangor January 10th and 11th next weekend. We haven't had this kind of racing in Bangor in a long time. I don't even know why it disappeared, but thank you for bringing it back.
Yeah, thanks for everybody up at the foundation work with us and getting the snowcross up and running again up in Maine. We haven't been up there in quite a bit of time now, and I think going up will be very well. I mean, we're going to get a lot of racers back into the sport, and a lot of people riding that just can't afford to travel 10 hours to get to a racetrack.
Yeah. Now, I mean, when you look at Bangor as a racing site, you've got stadium seating at Bass Park, you've got Hollywood Casino across the street, we can make snow here even in a bad winter. You must look at Bangor as a dream place to come.
Yeah, it's a great site. I mean, all these people putting together a lot of work to get this snowmaking done and get us ready so we can get up there and make the track. And it's going to be a very good show. We got it's the Triple Crown, so it's the first race for a Triple Crown. So it's going to be quite a bit of racers, a lot of very talented riders coming down from Canada also.
Yeah, we should stop here and explain exactly what Snowcross is, because there's a lot of different ways to race a sled. Snowcross is a rather unique way to do it.
Snowcross is like a MX dirt bike track. There's multiple rhythm sections, jumps, corners. We run up to double-stacked groups of sleds. It could be up to 8-10 sleds, depending on the tracks. Mm-hmm. You got gaps from anywhere off the tabletop. There's triples, doubles. You can get up to 80 feet on jumps, and even bigger.
That I would be scared to death to jump 80 feet in a sled. It's not like a motorcycle where they're lighter and they roll quickly when you hit the ground. You must come down with a thump.
Yeah, a lot of these racers are very, very, they're very in shape. Yeah. to control these 400-pound snowmobiles.
Yeah. Now, do they race in Minnesota or all over the country? Are there national rules or expectations for this?
Yes, a lot of our riders, top riders and upper level riders will ride out in the ISOC series as well.
Mm-hmm. What is ISOC? Because I don't know.
And it's International Snowmobiles of Champions. It's where, say, your Cody Cam, your Tucker Hibbert, and those type manufacturer-backed riders ride.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, how many divisions actually race, especially when you get to the Snowcross here in Bangor next weekend? How many divisions are there?
Oh, for different classes?
Yeah.
We have classes for everybody. We have classes from 120s, from 4 to 8-year-old, 4 to 10-year-old 120s, all the way up to the senior guys that have been racing to the Pro-Am. They can ride up till they're 50. There's multiple levels all the way through 10 to 13 classes, 8 to 10s. And then 14 up, of course, is where you get your riders that are moving up through the ranks out of juniors now and into the sport class and the pro light and the pro classes. They start moving up through that way. That's where they really start to shine. Mm-hmm.
So you classify people both by age and by the power of the machine, or how's it work?
Yes, we have to classify on our website. There's classifications, and we have to go through ISR rules that set the snowmobile to the age limit. So that way, it's very safe. We're not putting a 10-year-old on a 800. We can't run 800s now, but a 10-year-old on a 600 race sled.
Yeah.
So it's all categorized, so it's very safe for everybody.
Is there a big pool of professionals who do this?
There is. There is a lot of very professional teams that work very hard and travel around the country and back in on the East Coast that we have, in our areas, and they're a great group of people. It's like almost like a big family, once you get to know everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have some smaller snowcross events in Maine, especially at the club level. But where's the biggest concentration of these racers coming from? Quebec or New York or where?
There is a lot out of New York. There's a lot out of New Hampshire. Connecticut, you have quite a few. I think a lot of the areas, it almost seems to me a lot of the areas of where there is no snow to ride on trails, a lot of these guys got into racing snowmobiles. It's kind of different. I mean, you don't have much snow in Connecticut.
Yeah.
You don't have much snow. I mean, New York, upstate New York, there's it's the snowmobile kingdom over there, and
Sure.
and then Vermont, there's some, but there's a lot of places people come from that don't ride all year long.
Mm-hmm. Well, you yourself have 9 races for snowcross this year, I think. 4 in New York, 2 in Quebec, 1 in Mass, 1 in Vermont. Am I getting that right?
Yep.
Plus, of course, the one we'll do next weekend.
Right.
Are there any point standings for racing in all of these? Is there any cumulative prize that everybody's vying for?
These are all, there's payouts throughout the year for levels, Pro-Am and up levels, for the Pro Light and the Pro Riders. And everybody runs points. Even 120s run points. So at the end of the year, we have our yearly banquet at the end of the season, and we give out trophies, and then it's designated throughout the season of who gets number 1, 2, or 3 in their class. So it's a lot of these guys. That's what they're here for. They're racing for points, as does everybody else, and they're racing for the money. The top guys get contingency from factories and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, when somebody goes to a snowcross race next weekend, are they expecting heat races? Do you have a lot of riders and they have to race in heats to get to a quarterfinal, or how does this whole series work?
We race 2 heats and 1 final, unless there's a lot of people and we have to do an LCQ. But the 2 heats and 1 final is what we usually run. We'll run them throughout the day, and the finals will be later on, starting at around noontime or 11, the finals. We're usually wrapped up, hopefully, by 4:30, 3:30, 4:30, right around there. We start racing that right around 8 o'clock. Our practice is in the morning, and then we start moving right into the juniors in the morning, and then roll right into the bigger guys.
How long are the actual races? Obviously, it's a circuit race, so you do laps, but what's the actual distance that people are going?
It depends on the track. We're not sure how long this track's going to be. Of course, we're going to know once we start building it here. Usually, a track length, you get up there within the lap times with the pros, like 2 minutes or under 2 minutes, 170s and stuff like that. But it's usually dependent on the heats we do in the finals. It's quite a bit of racing.
We're talking about next weekend's big Paul Bunyan Snowcross races at Bass Park in Bangor. My guest is Kurt Gagne, owner of East Coast Snowcross, which brings the gear and runs the races. If you're watching the race, it's pretty easy to know who finished first. But it's not so easy to know why. What are the tactics needed to win? What should you be watching for? That's next. And also on the way, an early look at some long-distance races also headed to Maine this winter. It's Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. There are a lot of snowmobile racing events heading this way, and none of them is likely to be bigger than the one that happens next weekend. It's the Paul Bunyan Snowcross races next Saturday and Sunday. Brought to Bangor by Eastern Maine Community College Foundation, sponsored by Amsoil, Woody's, and FXR. My guest is Kurt Gagne of East Coast Snowcross. What is the strategy for a rider? When you see people doing Olympic skiing, for instance, the idea is to take as little air as possible so that you can get down the slope faster. You better off with no air or as much air as you can get on a sled?
I guess it depends on if you want to pass somebody in the air. Like anything else, if you're on the ground, you're moving faster. But if somebody's in your way, you're going to jump over them. You're going to see a lot of that. That and the hole shot. If everybody gets off the light and out of the hole shot, you get out front first. It's hard to get in. If you're in second place behind the first guy running, you get the snow roost, so it's hard to get around them.
Yeah, I mean, you must. The sled in front must kick up snow to the sled behind it. So running number 2 can't be all that easy.
No, I don't think it's that much fun. You get a face full of snow.
Yeah. Are collisions frequent? I mean, you're running a bunch of sleds all at once, and it's a pretty rugged course.
No, you get your occasional bobble, and somebody will get off and then get tied up with each other in the corners or something. But these guys are used to riding side by side with everybody. Even in the juniors, you don't get much. You get a little bumping and rubbing here and there, but there's really no collisions of any sort. That really stops anybody from racing.
Yeah, and it's not like NASCAR where the drivers get in fights, or does that happen?
Oh, I'm sure it happens. I mean, everything happens, but no, these guys are pretty professional. They're used to it. It's like I say, it's a group of racers. All these racers, from little ones to big ones, they all kind of know each other from years and years on end. So they know each other's style of riding.
Yeah. Now, I presume that you, as the owner of the event, can't take sides with brand names, but which make of sled usually wins?
It's been pretty decent lately.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been pretty decent between Polaris, Skidoo, and Arctic Cat. They've been running pretty tight altogether. It's hard to really pick one out of the group.
Yeah. Now, these sleds are actually modified for this event, or are they as they would be right out of the box?
Some of the junior classes are all stock. They have to be stock to the manufacturer when they leave the manufacturers. When you get up to the pros, they call it the pro mods. So those are modded sleds. They have engine work done to them, and they're a little louder than the stock sled. But mostly all the other sleds down the group are all stock, other than they do a little bit of work here and there to make them faster. Yeah,
and they must do something to modify the suspension on some of the pro sleds in order to make them jump a little smoother.
Yes, all the snowmobiles that are on the racetrack, on a snowcross track, the suspensions are all stiffer and valves different spring rates and that such, different gearing in the clutch in the gearboxes and different clutch rates and clutch springs and such. Just to make them different and whatever fits their racers' abilities and what they need.
Are there adjustments that you can make for conditions? Let's say you have a warm day versus a cold day.
Yeah, they do jetting conditions. They do jetting changes, clutching changes, and if the track changes, they'll do gearing and clutch. Track may be wet one day and 20 below zero the next day, and it's nice and hard, and so they change things up with weather and with track conditions. Yeah.
Now, this will really clarify how little I know about this, but are there weight restrictions? I mean, a guy who's 150 pounds versus a guy who's 250 pounds, that's an extra 100 pounds that sled has to accelerate with. Do you handicap this, or are there weight restrictions, or how's that work?
No, there's no weight restrictions. There's no height restrictions, weight restrictions. I mean, it's totally up to you. I mean, what your abilities are. I mean, I've seen big guys versus, very, very young and slim guys that they battle pretty good with each other.
Now, where can drivers practice? Because it doesn't seem to me there's a lot of opportunity to actually get experienced at this unless you're actually racing.
The only practice tracks there are, they're out in the Midwest. There's one in Michigan, and there's a couple over in Wisconsin, in that area. We're here in North Adams, Massachusetts, at a site we have a race at, the range. We are putting together a practice track. The weather hasn't been helping out with us. It's been raining, and we haven't had the cold enough weather. We blew snow one night, and we've got a little bit, enough to put a little base down on a corner. And the next week, we got cold temperatures. We're going to try to get this practice track blown out and groomed out so we can have our racers have somewhere to practice in the East Coast.
Yeah, because drivers, let's say, a Maine driver, is a long way from any opportunity to really practice, and I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, they could practice. I mean, a lot of people build something little in their backyard even, you know, with their tractor or their skid steer. They build a little track and kind of just practice like that. I mean, a lot of these guys are trail riders that came out and started racing, or they've been racing since they were 4 years old. But
when they probably started jumping things just for fun.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now, you talked about the entry level, a 120. This is a chance for young kids to really get into the sport pretty early with sleds that are not overpowered. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that?
The 120 class it's basic, as you say, get people started, get the kids into snowmobiling. It's very safe. We have our race officials work with them, and it's a very small track. We usually run on the big track with the 120s. We'll shorten it up. We won't let them go over the jumps. We'll go around them. And it's just something to do to have fun. They don't go fast enough. Those snowmobiles don't go fast enough when they're stock to really, scare any of the younger kids.
Yeah.
I have two kids that started out in that, and they're in the juniors now. They went right through, and they loved it. It was very fun. And we actually have a 120 racer program this year where we have 4 120 snowmobiles, and we're renting them out. Each one will be rented out with all the equipment and everything you need, so you can try it out and know if you like it or not, or if you like a snowmobile or not, to get into it without spending a whole bunch of money and then, the boy or girl doesn't like it anymore.
Well, yeah, you can never keep a sport or activity going unless the kids learn it, to replace us older folks. So the idea of having actual events and rental equipment in order to teach kids how to do it, or at least give them a taste, that's a pretty good self-sustaining idea.
Yeah, a lot of these kids, a lot of the safety equipment, the tech vests and the helmets and all that stuff, they may have the snowmobile, but they don't have the safety equipment we require, or we're required to have for the children and for all the way up through the ranks. They need to have to race on the snowcross track.
Yeah. Now, for the Paul Bunyan Snowcross that's coming up next weekend, it's a Saturday-Sunday event. If I remember right, it's $20 for a day or $30 for the weekend. What is the difference in racing between the 2 days? What's your schedule actually going to be?
We race the same races Saturday as we do Sunday. We have Saturday races all the way through our heats and finals on Saturday, and then Sunday we come out and we do the same thing over again. We may mix it up a little bit. There may be some fun stuff going on there. It's the track they get used to the track on Saturday. They race it. It's a real good racing, and then of course we got to go out and groom and maintain the track that night. And now these guys really got their snowmobiles tuned in for this track because we don't change it up a lot. And so they're ready Sunday for some big air and some fast lap times.
Well, very good. And with the event coming up next weekend, we all pray for good weather, but there is snowmaking available. So no matter what happens, I guess they're borrowing some guns from Herman Mountain, and there is going to be snow no matter what happens.
Oh yeah, there'll be snow. They're making snow. We should be all set, and we're prepared to build the track as quick as we can and maintain it, and get everybody in and out to watch this great event.
Well, thank you so much, Kurt, for bringing snowmobile racing back to Bass Park in Bangor.
Hey, thank you, guys.
That's Kurt Gagne, East Coast Snowcross, bringing the Paul Bunyan Snowcross races to Bass Park in Bangor next weekend. Snowcross is a tight oval track race with lots of jumps and a scramble to the finish line. Out on Maine's lakes, you're more likely to find a different kind of racing. There are 3 long-distance races headed this way this winter. The first one, January 24th. Eric Friggin of USCC East is on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine next, here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8. We are previewing some of the major snowmobile races coming up this month. Some of these races go in circles, some jump bumps, some races go in straight lines. Some go the distance, up to 100 miles. If you're one of those, it's likely Eric Friggin is there too. We had him on the show last year. Now, what racing company are you running, Eric?
Well, we run the USCC East, and it's a cross-country circuit based in the northeast of the United States. We've been running for about 5 years out here now, 5 or 6 years on our own, and it seems like we're growing a little bit every year and adding races to the series.
Now, when it comes to running a race, that means you have to bring all the timing gear and all the safety equipment that's necessary for it. So you've got to back the trailer up. We do.
We have a pretty good-sized trailer, and actually we're going to be jumping into a new trailer this year, but and we've made some changes on the timing systems this year. Trying to keep people interested and spectators interested in our races has been a difficult thing to do over the past few years. So this year we've turned it up to a heads-up style race as opposed to just a timing style race.
So what will be the big difference if somebody's been to a race before and now watches the new style of racing? What are they going to see that looks different?
Well, we're not going to do the staggered start timing systems. We're going to change that up totally, and we're going to run each class on basically a sprint style start. They'll be all in one line and start at the same time. So now it'll be more race-like than it has been in the past, as opposed, in the past we've just had the timing system set up, and we go by the computer time for each person, and that computer sets these people and how they would have finished or how they do finish in that class. Well, we had some complaints about, people not understanding where people were during the race, and spectators are kind of bored, and so on and so forth. So in order to try to change that up and keep the interest and get the racing style back, we're gonna do that heads-up racing this year.
So is there any possibility of these sleds swapping paint now?
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a possibility of that for sure, especially in the first few corners. Depending on what we have for track setup and layout, it's going to become a lot tighter in the first few corners. The biggest thing for us, though, is safety. I don't want to see anybody get hurt, and I don't want to see anybody banging up equipment every weekend. I'm sure that it's a possibility, no matter what you do for safety, it's going to happen here and there, but we're going to try to keep that to a 0% still.
Well, obviously, one of the ways to do that is just limit the number of sleds who are racing each other, so you probably do this in heats and by various classes.
Yeah, we'll run heats if we have too many people entering in a class, and each race may change. I'm not sure yet, but it may change on what we see on the front line for starts. If we have a big, wide open area, like if we're on a lake in Jackson, for instance, on Long Pond, we're going to be on a lake primarily. So in a situation like that, we can pretty much open the whole beginning of that course up to make sure that we have very limited spots for people to be banging into each other in the start of the race. Whereas if we have a smaller, tight course, we're not going to have that luxury to be able to have a lot of wide open area in the first few corners of the track. So, we may end up widening the whole, a good portion of that beginning of the track out so that we can hopefully keep people out of trouble in the beginning.
Well, you do have 3 races scheduled for in Maine and then some out of state. There's Long Pond and Jackman on January 24th. There's Fort Kent on February 21st, and the Maine 100 in Greenville on Moosehead Lake, March 14th.
Yep.
How do those races differ from each other?
Well, in Jackman, that's going to primarily be again a lake race. It'll be on Long Pond out in front of Long Pond Camp, and that'll be primarily a lake race. We'll have a little bit of woods combined, but for the most part, it will be all on ice. And then once you get to Fort Kent, there's a lot of fields up there, obviously in farm country, and that's what we race on up there. So that's what we'll see. Not a lot of actually in the woods. We do have a difference in the course, I believe, this year, so we'll get a little bit of woods time. But for the most part, it's all fields. And when we get back to Greenville again, we're on a lake again. We've had a hard time getting some woods mixed in there, but every year we try to find a way to get some mixed in. But we're a lot of shoreline when we get to Greenville.
Which is weird because there are so many logging roads there. You would think some of it would be amenable to doing a race on it, but I know the logistics.
Yeah, it takes a lot of planning to try to do it with all the logging roads and roads that are plowed and trail systems, and to try and not interfere with that stuff, happening on a regular basis. Because obviously, just because we're racing snowmobiles doesn't mean that the average trail rider wants to be affected by the race going on. Not all of the people are interested in hanging out and watching a race all day long.
Yeah. It's a 100-mile race, so how much of that 100 miles can the spectator actually see?
Well, we usually run around a 5-mile course. And when you look at a place like Jackman, actually all the races that we're going to have in Maine, you're going to see the majority of that course from the spectator area. You know, at some point you're going to be a ways away, but you're going to be able to see the majority of that course from where we have the spectators set up. You know, when we say 100 miles, it's not every class runs 100 miles. We usually try to run all of our classes, with the exception of the pro and semi-pro 600 sleds, in the neighborhood of a half-hour track time. So usually, if we're running a 5-mile course, that may be, you know, a 20-mile race that those classes will run. And then normally, that pro and semi-pro race, the pros will run. That race happens at the end of the day, and the pros will run as close to 100 as we can get them. But again, we've run into issues in the past, and I think about Madawaska a few years back, where it took 3.5 hours for those pros to finish that 100-mile race. And by the end of that, we had guys missing, you know, the majority of the skin on their hands. So it was, to go 100 miles that day was not really the smartest thing to do. But at that time, that's what the racers wanted, was to run the full 100.
Yeah.
So now what we do is we cut that back a little. We'll do, once the course is set up, we do a time check on that. We run some sleds around it to get an estimated time. And then we'll try to keep the pros on there for about 2 hours. And we'll cut that back a little bit for the semi-pro guys. And then the other big difference for the pro 600 at the end of the day is we do a mandatory fuel stop in the middle of that, too.
Now, the track racing, you know, the short tracks, the snowcross, the drag racing, they can all put down snow if it's been a bad winter, but you can't really do that on a 5-mile track. So you must.
No, it's pretty tough.
You must pray harder for snow than everybody else does.
We do. And the biggest thing is even if we're not having a ton of snow, if we have ice, we always have the lake to fall back on. You know, we can stay completely on ice. And we've done that in the past. But no, to be able to make snow and spread it over a 5-mile course, and even if you backed it up and did a 2 or 3 mile course, that's a lot of work for a promoter to take under. Yeah. And it's not going to be the easiest thing for them to do. So, no, we rely on Mother Nature pretty heavily. So
when spectators show up to watch the race, what advice would you give them to get the best experience out of it?
Well, I'd say, you know, mix around with some of the racers. Go see what they have for equipment. Talk to the guys and the crews, and people are pretty friendly around us. And, you know, we like to have new people around, and that may lead into them wanting to race. Because a lot of the racers that come into this cross-country world don't necessarily come from racing backgrounds. You know, some of them just, they really enjoy fast trail riding, and this is the way to do it without getting yourself into a lot of trouble with oncoming traffic and so on and so forth. You know, it's a safe way to go fast on a trail-type setting.
Is there a classification for sleds that aren't modified so that a sled that comes right out of the box from the manufacturer is eligible to run?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually this year we have a brand new class for those sleds that are fuel-injected 600s that we're running, a factory stock class. That's going to just run with the rest of the classes through the day, so that'll be around a 20-mile race for that class because it's going to be our first season to see how that class turns out numbers-wise. And then we have everything from 120 kids races all the way up through, you know, pro classes for open sleds and for stock sleds. Well,
let's repeat the 3 races again that are going to happen in Maine. It's Long Pond in Jackman on January 24th,
yep.
Fort Kent on February 21st, Greenville on March 14th. To find out information about these races, is there a website people should go to?
We do. We use Facebook all the time. You just search for the USCC or the USCC East on Facebook, and all the information is posted on there.
Well, good luck with the racing season, and I hope you get snow.
Thanks a lot.
That's Eric Friggin, who's the brains behind 3 cross-country snowmobile races headed our way. The first one in Jackman in 3 weeks. Coming up, a few details about some drag races, another snowcross, and some other tidbits. Then we'll pop over to Greenville and look behind the scenes of a snowmobile event that is 2 weeks away. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. I'm Bob Duchesne, host of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and today's show is a preview of the many snowmobile racing events coming up this winter. We opened with a look at the Paul Bunyan Snowcross coming up next weekend at Bass Park in Bangor. There's another major snowcross event on the horizon. The Lincoln Snowhounds put on a 2-day snowcross every winter. This year it'll be the 3rd weekend of February, the 21st and 22nd at the Clubhouse in Lincoln. The first weekend of February is big with a couple of non-racing events. The 42nd Pine Tree Camp Ride-In. We'll spend 3 days in Newport having a great time and raising money so the children with disabilities can attend a summer camp all their own. Part of that will be the Q106.5 Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride, an event on our sister station that I actually started more than a quarter century ago. Another event I keep my eye on shares the Pine Tree name and shares the weekend, but other than that, there's no relation. The Pine Tree Snowmobile Club in Milford will have its poker run on Sunday, February 8th. If you just can't wait that long to have some fun with the club, their annual Chili Chowder Supper and Auction happens January 24th at the Milford Town Office. Yes, you'll be hearing more about that on a future show. 2 weekends from now, the Moosehead Riders will conduct the annual commemorative ride up Elephant Mountain east of Moosehead Lake to visit the site of a B-52 bomber that crashed in 1963 in a training flight out of Westover Air Force Base in Massachusetts. 2 crewmen survived after an impossibly cold night of the mountain. The rest of the crew perished, and a memorial service is held on the mountain every year. John Cobb is president of the club, so welcome to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, John.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Moosehead Riders, it's a big club. Your website says it's the 4th largest in the state.
Yeah, actually, last year we finished as the largest Eastern Region club through MSA, and I believe we were the 3rd largest club in the state last year.
Which puts the pressure on me to guess who the top 2 are. I'm thinking Millenockett's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, I believe they are, but I believe actually Rangeley and the Eustis Club are typically the 2 largest.
I wasn't even close. I should have thought of Rangeley, but I didn't.
Yeah, they're a big group over there, that's for sure.
Yeah, here in the Bangor area, it's really more a matter of smaller clubs around the edges of town, so we don't have any big guns here the way they are in Rangeley and Greenville, etc.
Right.
Well, tell me a little bit about the club. You've got what looks to me to be very attractive rates on being a member of the Moosehead Riders. Family memberships and sporting business memberships are actually pretty darn cheap.
Yeah, and we've tried hard to hold the line on our membership costs as we're trying to rebuild our membership levels. So right now, family membership is $33, and the business membership is $43. And then we also have associate or affiliate members for $15. So we've tried, and that's the same rate we've had for the last 5 or 6 years, and we're hopeful to be able to stick with those numbers.
Yeah. So. A lot of snowmobilers go to the Moosehead area and use the trails. So what is your interaction with the folks who come into the area to visit? Do you see them?
Well, personally, I don't see a lot of them because I'm always busy behind the scenes keeping things working. Yeah. But we have a lot of our local businesses that are supporting members, and of course that's a key component to their winter business here in Greenville. And they quite often report back on the volume of traffic over the weekend and how good or bad it was. And of course, it's all dependent on the quality of the trails that are out there. The riding conditions. So, our purpose right now is to provide the best ride that we can for those that choose to come and visit our area.
That puts an awful lot of pressure on your club and on the volunteers to be a small club at a destination area. You've got a certain responsibility to make sure that your trail system is groomed for those who come visit.
Yeah, it is a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of time that goes into it. And most of our members and our riders are aware of what goes into it to make it happen. Of course, you always have those that aren't, and they don't understand how the system works, and that it's all done by volunteers, and they can get fairly critical at times of the product that you're producing, but usually when you have a chance to say, hey, we're all just snowmobilers ourselves, we're trying to do this to support our local communities that we all live and work in, and we're doing the best we can. So, I hope you can enjoy it and kind of be happy with what you have.
Draw a picture for me in my head here about where your clubs sort of hand off to each other at a certain point where they stop grooming and the next club takes over. But I don't really have a good grasp of where your club stretches out to before you get taken over by Jackman or Green or Millinocket. How far do you groom?
Well, we maintain 80 miles of the ITS system, and our primary trail is ITS 85 and 86. 85, of course, is kind of like I-95, and it starts at the MSA's office in Augusta,
and goes all the way north. And so that's our major, most popular traveled route, and that comes right through the center of town. And then ITS 86 comes in from the west, kind of parts west, which would be the Forks, and the Jackman and Rockwood areas all feed in on ITS 86 into Greenville. And those carry right through town, all the way north to Cocadjo. Our northbound grooming run, we turn around right in downtown Cocadjo, where we meet the Roach River Riders, and that's Fred and Marie Candelario, and we actually turn right around in their dooryard and come back to Greenville, and then they manage everything, from that point out until they meet the next group.
Of course, when you turn around in their dooryard, it's hard to pass up a chance to get over and get some coffee.
Well, it is, and they're really great to work with. We have a great relationship with Fred and Marie, and we buy diesel fuel from them because we usually have to refuel our groomer before we head back south. So, they've been really supportive. This is our second winter of Moosehead Riders managing and maintaining the ITS system in this area, and they've been a big help.
So when you go south, you go as far as Shirley or even further? Or
we go south all the way to Blanchard.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and our southbound run is about 18 miles. And we meet with the Guilford Club, who come up through on the abandoned railroad bed, and we meet at a point right in almost downtown Blanchard, even though it really doesn't exist, but we meet there and we turn around and head back north, and then we groom west and meet the folks from Northern Outdoors that come over from the Forks. And that's about an 11-mile run going west that we meet up with them.
I would say that the abandoned railroad line is actually in better shape in winter than it is in summer these days.
Yeah, it certainly is. That needs a lot of attention down there. And it's a multi-use trail, so the ATVers use it all summer, and it does end up being a lot smoother in the winter.
Yeah, there are puddles that are deeper than my car at this point.
Yeah, there's some pretty significant water issues along that trail, yeah.
My guest is John Cobb, president of the Moosehead Riders. Obviously, the Moosehead area is a big snowmobiling destination in the state, and often this club's volunteers are providing the hospitality and especially the trail grooming. We'll pause a moment and then go into the details of the event that is 2 weekends away, the B-52 Commemorative Ride up Elephant Mountain. That's next as Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine continues on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. You are listening to Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. John Cobb is my guest. He's president of the Moosehead Riders. Their clubhouse is on Scammon Road, not far from downtown Greenville, and also not far from all the good trails on the east side of Moosehead Lake, and not far from the site of a plane crash dating back to 1963. A B-52 on a training flight crashed after a piece of the tail broke off. It's a firm reminder that even in peacetime, our armed forces put themselves at risk to protect our safety. And every year, the Moosehead Riders have been making a January trip up to the site. John?
We have. Moosehead Riders was formed in 1968, and there were club members that, before the club was even formed, but kind of the founding fathers of the Snowmobile Club that participated in the rescue when the B-52 crashed originally. And, of course, back then, snowmobiling was a lot different than it is nowadays. But, we've been around for a long time, and we've always felt a really close kinship to the survivors and the victims and the crash site itself. And we have acted for as long as I know as the stewards for that crash site up there, and we maintain it and make sure that it's kept in good shape and accessible for the public.
As part of the commemoration, if I remember right, you've got a piece of the engine in front of the clubhouse on the Scammon Road there, don't you? We
do. We have a number of artifacts. We have 2 of the ejection seats that were occupied by crew members, and we have some parachutes, a lot of photographs, a lot of history right inside the clubhouse, and then we have one of the engines on display out in front. In
fact, I should mention, yes, you have a clubhouse. It is on the Scammon Road, and I am wondering whether you do breakfast every weekend or just special weekends, or do you serve up breakfast at all?
Well, we don't really do much with breakfast. In the last couple of years, to be honest with you, the clubhouse hasn't been open a lot because we've had staffing issues and different things. But this winter, we're planning to make a concerted effort to be open on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 10 to 2. And we're going to be doing lunch, and it's basic, hot dogs and hamburgers and hot coffee, and give people a place to come in. And we've got a beautiful facility with nice restrooms and a radiant heated floor and a great place to come and warm up and get some trail information and continue on your ride.
Well, I talk about the B-52 crashes as if everybody knows about it, and I just sort of take it for granted that most Mainers do. But back in the early 60s, the B-52 on a training flight crashed on Elephant Mountain, and 2 people survived under incredible conditions. And there's now a ride up there every year, which is led by the Moosehead Riders. If I remember right, you're sort of doing a lunch first and then riding up the mountain.
Yeah, we actually do 2 ceremonies because we want people to have a really good opportunity to participate. So we do a luncheon. We do a spaghetti luncheon every year that some of the ladies put on at the clubhouse, which is always great. And it's a good chance. Quite often we have family members of the survivors and different people that show up, and they share stories and memories and history about the events. And we do that, and then we have a nice ceremony right outside the clubhouse for those that aren't able or choose not to ride by snowmobile out to the crash site. And the American Legion, the Maine Warden Service, they all participate. The Air Guard comes up, and we do a nice service there, and then we all get on sleds and go out and do a ceremony at the crash site.
I've been up there a lot in the summer, probably averaging at least once a year, but I've never been up there in the winter. I imagine it's just as haunting a feeling as when you do it in the summer.
It is, and even more so for a lot of folks, because you can close your eyes and you can listen to the wind. And we all, as much as we'd like to have a really nice day, 40 degrees and sunny, and everyone can, be happy up there, it's really more poignant if it's a really cold, windy, bitter January day, and people can think what it must have been like for them to be there in that situation. The night of the crash.
Yeah, because the survivors were up there in sub-zero weather. I think like 10 to 20 below zero, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it was a really horrible night, and it was very inaccessible at that point in time. There weren't the roads that exist now that you can drive a Cadillac on to go visit the crash site. There weren't roads within 10, 11 miles of that crash site when that happened. So it was a really a remote place when they went down.
And you're doing this in partnership with the Air National Guard. Do they go up with you?
They do, yeah. And this year we're fortunate. There's a large contingent, at least that we've been told anyway, that's coming from Westover Air Force Base. And that, of course, is where the B-52 flight originated. And they're going to come up and join us this year for the ride. And they're really excited about doing that.
Now, for anybody who wanted to go along in this ride, what would the details be about where to meet, when to meet?
Well, we always encourage people to come to the spaghetti luncheon, and that starts at noon on the day of the ride. And they come right to our clubhouse at 82 Scammon Road in Greenville. It's really easy to find. We're right on the side of the road, and it's well signed, and we have plenty of parking. We ask people to come and join us and have lunch and stay for at least one of the services, and hope that they can come and ride with us out to the service at the crash site. We always send out the Air Guard and the wardens and military folks ahead of the rest of the group, and they set up at the crash site and get things ready. And then we lead, the Snowmobile Club personnel lead the rest of the riders out in kind of a single file line, and we take a nice slow ride out to the crash site, and then we have the ceremony.
Well, once again, if anyone wants to find out information about anything you're doing, it's mooseheadriders.com.
Yes, and you can also follow us on Facebook. And we have a large following. We're up to 1,600 or so followers on Facebook right now. And we post a lot of updates and trail changes and current conditions on our Facebook page just because it's quick and easy. And we have a lot of our members and followers that get all their information right off the Facebook page.
Well, John Cobb, thank you for joining me on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine.
Thank you very much, Bob.
John Cobb, president of the Moosehead Riders Snowmobile Club in Greenville. Today's show has been about some of the snowmobiling events that are coming up this winter, starting with the Paul Bunyan Snowcross next weekend. That'll go both days. You can watch one day for $20 or both days for $30. The following weekend is the B-52 commemorative ride that we just talked about. The Paul Bunyan Snowmobile Club in Bangor also has its vintage snowmobile ride that day. And the Northern Timber Cruisers Snowmobile Club in Millinocket will have their snowball run for cancer research that same day, too. The long-distance races start on January 24th when the Long Pond 100 race runs in Jackman. There's a snowmobilist calendar on the website of the Maine Snowmobile Association. The website is mesnow.com. That's all one word, mesnow.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine airs twice every weekend, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. and Sunday morning at 8 a.m. And it's archived with all the previous shows on the website at 929theticket.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, and Napa Auto Parts. This is Sports Radio 929 The Ticket.